The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, game toppers, nearly forgetting an important Dutchy holiday, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Dutchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Dutchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the gateway city, St. Louis, Missouri, it's the Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board, card, and occasionally role-playing games. Today, the Dukes give you their top games for each year of the 2010s. Then they'll be taking a look back at their review of Carpe Diem in their Dukes Double Take. And now, the Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And this is episode 216, Barely Feld-mas. Barely Feld-mas, that title, thanks to Striker J. Alex, we completely forgot Feld-mas. Is there a war on Feld-mas?
So here's what I think happened. Because we finally caved into your demands and did a Feld-mas in July.
My terrorist demands.
Yes, it had us forget that we actually are supposed to do Feld-mas during Feld-mas time. So That's exactly what happened. We blanked on Feld-mas. Luckily, though, as Stryker was so keen to point out, we do have a double take that features the workings of Stefan Feld, and we're covered. We're covered, but rough year for Feld-mas.
Very, very rough year. And man, I don't know. You just get busy sometimes, and things like Feld-mas just kind of go to the wayside. You got to prioritize. Keep your priorities in life straight, Alex. I don't know what to tell you. Tell everyone. Well, anyway, thanks Striker J again for that episode title. We get all of our episode titles from our guild number 2008 over on Board Game Geek, where we put up our Dukes on deck every other week so you can help us fill in the episode, name the episodes, and also talk about some of the games. So, how you doing, Alex? How was your non-Feld-mas and your other holidays?
Okay, so here's what things have been. All right, so the Tuesday before I leave for Christmas, because I ended up celebrating Christmas out in California with Abby. Abby came along, met both sides of my family, the Goldsmiths and the Matronis, and played some games out there. I'll talk about that all in a bit. Lovely time in San Francisco. Before I headed out there, though, I was in line for a job, and I think I may have mentioned this during the recording. In line for a job, and I didn't mention where, at the ACLU as a communications manager. Yeah.
Okay.
And on that Tuesday, I had the interview. On that Thursday, they were checking references, and they told me that they brought in 3 people for the final interview, and they were checking references on 2. So I was one of the people they were checking references on. And Sean, I am very good at finishing second place for jobs.
Oh, boy.
Because that Saturday, I found out as I had just gotten to San Francisco. Yep, sorry, bud. Job search continues. So that was a great early Christmas present for me. That was fantastic. The holidays itself went great. I got some lovely AirPods Pro, which I'm listening to you on and using to record the show. Got some wonderful other things. No board game related presents, Sean. I received no board game related accoutrement. So, what about you? How were your holidays?
Great. They were great. We did Christmas Eve over at my grandparents', where we made a New Mexican favorite pozole with red chili and tamales from Modelo's, which is an excellent New Mexican restaurant here in town. And then Christmas Day, we had all the Christmas present openings with the kids. And then Christmas Day, after the presents, I made a delicious prime rib, Alex. So delicious. In fact, we've been enjoying prime rib sandwiches ever since, open-faced prime rib sandwiches.
How fancy. Those do sound good.
So interesting, Alex. As we were discussing all of this, your AirPods failed.
As I was bragging about my wonderful holiday present of my AirPods Pro, for some reason they decided to I just couldn't hear you anymore. So then I switched back to other headphones and then had some technical issues with those. So none of you will hear this in the final edit, I'm sure.
The 5 minutes of us trying to fix things. Alex.
Yeah, but that's what I get for bragging about Christmas presents.
Uh,
So shows me.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, no, it was good holidays and lots of stuff to watch. Just watched episode 9 when it Star Wars episode 9 when it actually the day that it premiered last Thursday before we recorded. No spoilers. I enjoyed it a lot, but it had some issues. It had
All
some
right.
significant issues, but I enjoyed it. But there's also like The Witcher that's on, The Mandalorian's finishing up. So much like there's just so much stuff on. Like we're kind of overwhelmed right now with all the stuff we have to watch. But yeah. Very quick update, Alex, on the Dukes of Diet. So
How's that been going this holiday season?
Interesting. Let me preface it by saying that. Good. I have lost a little tiny bit of weight. I have not gained any weight despite all of the holiday eating, despite all of the prime rib sandwiches. But we had a slight problem. So I think last episode I was probably like 260 or like 260.5 or something like that. And then I was down to like 257. Ooh, this is good. Then one day I wake up from like 257 and I was 254. I was like, that's weird. I get back on the scale. It says like 252. I'm like, okay, well that's not right. And then I get back on and then it jumps up to like 259. I'm like, okay, the batteries are dead. So I replace the batteries and then same thing, like 253, way too light. So we kind of play around with it. It turns out the scale's been wrong for a couple weeks.
Oh no.
So basically there's been a slight, slightly going down more than it should have been. So I bought a new scale and it turned out I was like 261.
Okay.
And this one's very accurate. I kind of paid a little bit more than kind of just a cheap, $15 bathroom scale. So I paid a little bit more just because I didn't want to have this happen again. So as of this morning, I was 260.2. So I'm about where I thought I was. I think in retrospect, well, I don't know. That was kind of frustrating to be like, I don't know what was actually happening the last couple weeks. Because I can't rely on my measurements, my instruments.
So using the same scale, I'm about a pound, maybe a pound and a half up from the last time we hopped on here. I don't feel too bad about that. I'll be back in the gym today, right at the end of this podcast. So yeah, I'm feeling fine about that. It's fine. It's all fine, Sean. So,
well, Alex, let's talk about some board games, shall we?
Yes, indeed. Why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I've got a lot of different stuff to talk about, but I'm not going to talk about a lot of it. If that makes sense. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
That makes no sense.
Okay. Let me rephrase that. So the new Marvel Champions expansions came out. So there's a Captain America deck, there's a Miss Marvel deck, and then there's a new Green Goblin scenario pack. I got 3 games in with the Green Goblin. There's actually 2 different scenarios in the Green Goblin pack. And I played 3 games against the first scenario. And I'm not going to go too much into it. Although, here's what I will say. I used my favorite character, which of course is
Iron Man, Tony Stark.
Iron Man. Yeah, Tony Stark. Again, Tony Stark, right? And I posted on Twitter. I don't know if you saw this, but I posted on Twitter, took my boy Tony out for a spin against Green Goblin in the risky business scenario. Like the flipping mechanic for a villain, gonna play Captain America and Miss Marvel tomorrow, hopefully, which I did not get a chance to. Fantasy Flight responded, "Thanks for checking out Marvel Champions, the card game! ! I hope that you and Tony found success in your adventures."
Very formal.
I don't know if they thought like my buddy Tony and I were playing, but I had pictures of Iron Man. I don't know.
Yeah, I maybe they got it.
Maybe.
There's no proof in there that they didn't get it.
Sure.
To me.
Maybe.
I don't think you've caught them red-handed on this one, Sean.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, so I will talk about that more once, hopefully next episode, once I've had probably another 15 plays in with all the new expansion stuff, because I'm really enjoying Marvel Champions. And we may hear a little bit more about it later in the episode, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm pretty sure we will.
Okay. All right. So let me talk about a game that Matthew brought called Shipwreck Arcana by Meromorph Games, designed by Kevin Bishop. And this is an interesting cooperative deduction game. You have a bag full of tokens that are from 1 to 7. I think it's 1 to 7. I don't think there's a 0 in there. And you're going to, every turn, you're going to draw enough tokens so that you have 3. So at the beginning of the game, you draw 3. In subsequent turns, you're usually only drawing 1 more because you'll have discarded a token in previous turns. And what you're trying to do is have people guess a particular token in hand, what value it is. And you do that by placing other tokens out on these cards that are out that have some sort of numerical restrictions on them. Like it might say something to the effect of, you can place this token here if the other tokens in your hand add up to exactly 7. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, I think so.
So I would have to choose one of the, I think it's 4 cards. And if I meet that condition, I place a token there. And now everyone knows that I have either a 1 and a 6, a 2 and a 5, or a 3 and a 4, right?
Okay. Yes.
And so hopefully there's other information to glean, either from a previous turn or just process of elimination, where it's like, okay, I know he doesn't have a 1, so it must be a 2 and a 5 or a 3 and a 4. And then at a certain point, you can make guesses, and if you're correct, then you get a point. You need a certain number of points to win. This was interesting. I don't know that as time goes on, I'm crazier and crazier about straight deduction games. I certainly like social deduction games, but straight deduction games, like Cryptid was a big hit when it came out. I was not crazy about it, and I think I'm just liking deduction games, pure deduction games, less and less, which is kind of weird. You would think that that'd be something I would enjoy. This one I liked well enough. I'd certainly play it again. We played it 3 players with it was me, Matthew, and Eugene, and I think it plays a higher player count, but I think 3 was a good number of players. It was an okay, the beautiful art, very nice production. There's kind of a weird theme to it. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think it's worth checking out. Just a small box game. Probably took us about a half hour to play. And yeah, actually, I think Kenny was in that game too. Did we play at 4 players? We played at 4 players. I stand corrected. Yeah.
Doesn't sound bad, but straight deduction is not my cup of tea.
Yeah. It was good. It was good. And I think if you like deduction, I think you'll like this game. So that's Shipwreck Arcana.
Well, let me talk about some games I brought out for the holidays, for Christmas. They're games I've already talked about. Wavelength. I brought out Welcome To. I brought out The Mind. I brought out Air, Land, and Sea. And the only game I brought that I didn't play for the holidays was Medium. So I had a pretty good track record with that. But the one thing I wanted to talk about was something that's kind of game adjacent. My brother, when we were out there, threw a game party. And it was, he called it the Reindeer Games, Sean. And it went pretty dang well. So you split up into 3 teams of 4 to 5. In our case, 2 teams of 5, 1 team of 4. One team was in charge of the opening ceremonies, 1 team was in charge of the closing ceremonies, and 1 team was the prize committee. There were 5 games. The games themselves were distributed to different folks who had showed up to the party in kind of the hour before it started. And then the person who was given that game got to determine the details of the game, how it was run. So the game I was tasked with running, Sean, was Santa's Workshop. You had a bunch of stuff from a scrap place. The store was literally called Scraps. We had Hebrew flashcards. We had felt. We had creepy teddy bears. We had all sorts of random stuff. And in your teams, you had a minute to discuss. Then we did 4 rounds of a draft to determine who got what individual thing to make as part of their toy. And then you had 10 minutes to, as a team, build a toy. My team ended up winning that one. We built a 3-hole mini golf course. 3-hole mini golf course. I'm not a very crafty person, Sean. I was very proud of this 3-hole themed mini golf course. There was a Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and Christmas hole. To build that in 10 minutes was pretty cool. We also had, charades. There was an improv game. There was a game with a party popper where you have to wrap the party popper as tightly as possible, and then you pass it to the next team. The next team passes theirs to the other team. The other team passes it to you. Whoever unwraps it and pops it first ends up winning. Their prize committee was in charge of trophies. It was a ton of fun. If you are game inclined or game related, and this sounds at all remotely interesting to kind of have more game in your holiday party, let me know, because this was a way to kind of satisfy the game urges while also incorporating people who weren't necessarily very gamery. There were elements of acting, of drawing, of crafts, and I don't know, it was just a nice combination of things. So the reindeer game, Sean, that's the first one I'll talk about, because everything else I played over the holidays I have talked about before.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So I have another game to talk about that I mentioned briefly in the last episode, but I said I'd hold off on talking about it more in recent plays. And that is Bus. This is from Splotter and Capstone, which if I told you just that, Alex, you would expect that this would be something that's highly anticipated, something I'd enjoy quite a bit, right?
Yes.
Ooh, I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so this game was designed in 1999. So it's a Splotter game, which they have games that I absolutely love. Indonesia, Food Chain Magnate, Antiquity. I love Splotter, love Capstone games. And it was interesting that Capstone brought this over, to help publish it, make it more widely available, because Splotter historically does very small, like boutique print runs of their games. So this is interesting, but it's an old game, 1999, and I kind of think that some of that age was kind of showing through. So this is a worker placement game that has some pick up and deliver elements to it. Basically, you are creating separate transit routes, bus routes in the city, and you're trying to get people from, first, they're going to be in their homes. Then you need to get them to work, and then from work to the bar, and then from bar back home. And each round, it's going to shift where they're looking to go, kind of in that order. And so there's different worker placement spots, but it's one of those worker placement games where everyone takes turn placing their workers out on the spots. You don't resolve them immediately, but then you resolve them in a certain order from top to bottom and then from left to right. But there's an interesting placement. So certain actions get placed left to right. Other actions get placed right to left, but they all get resolved left to right, if that makes sense. But generally, the sooner you place on a spot, the more powerful your version of the action is going to be. So some of the actions are, let's see, there are lay routes down. Then there is increase your bus limit. And then there's increased demand, where you're putting new tiles out on the board for the work, the homes, and the bars. There's also the spot to increase workers, or not workers, excuse me, but the passengers, where you can put more passengers out onto the board. And then the very bottom, there's a spot to basically run a route, to have your bus routes channel passengers from where they are to where you want them to go. And every time you do that, you score a point, and that's pretty much how you win. But there's also a spot you can go that is a time machine, Alex.
Whoa.
Quite literally a time machine. And at first, when Eugene was explaining this to me, I'm like, oh, you mean it just sort of has the effect of a time machine? He's like, no. Thematically, it's a time machine. Like, you could stop time. So if it's time for the passengers to go from the bar back home, you push the button, you stop time, and nope, they're gonna, maybe it's Groundhog Day. They're just repeating that third of a day, and they go back to the bar again.
Sean, do you know what I saw? Oddly enough, that you bring this up over Christmas, I saw my cousin acting in Groundhog Day the musical.
Oh, all right.
There is a musical version of Groundhog Day.
That sounds lovely. I love Groundhog Day the movie.
You won't love the musical then.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I hope your cousin doesn't listen to the podcast.
No, he has the same opinion of the overall show. So
okay.
Yes.
So anyway, so yeah, that was kind of weird. I was like, oh, all right. Like, it was very strange to me. And I don't know why they made that choice. To me, it just seems like, hey, all of a sudden there's a peak demand for the bar. So we're doing another bar phase. Like, to me, that just seems like an easy explanation for it. I don't know why there was this time element. I will say that when you stop time, you take one of these tokens that's basically a negative point at the end of the game. Okay. There's some interesting things here. Lot of interesting things. Like, this is, I think, a really well-designed game, but there's been a lot of development in game design in literally 20 years. So, like, one of the things is everyone has the same number of workers. It's like 20 or 22 workers, and you can place all of them out, but anytime you place a worker, that worker's gone. So you are kind of timing, you're setting a pace for yourself, because maybe I'm only going to put out 2 workers this turn or 3 workers this turn. And this turn, maybe I'm going to do 4 workers. I don't know. So it's interesting there. There's a lot of interesting decisions in this game. There's a little bit of opaqueness. It was kind of hard to see where the demand would be, and we kind of developed a little system to help track it. But it's a really tight game. Really, everything's on a knife's edge. It's good, but I just wasn't crazy about it. And I had actually purchased it from the shop, from Empire, unplayed. I'm like, I'm just going to buy it. It's a Splotter game. I've heard great things about this, and I opened up my copy. I didn't break it down, but then we wound up playing the shop's copy, and now I'm like, I don't know that I really want to keep my copy. If I'm going to play it, it's available at the shop. Doesn't play 2 players, so it's not like we'll play it here at the house with me and Raquel. It wasn't a wow for me, and I think some of it may be the age showing on the design. So I would say that if you are a Splotter fan or a Capstone fan, give it a try. If you like pick up and deliver, if you like kind of knife fights, give it a try. It's not something I'd say go run out and buy. I'd say give it a try first, and maybe you'll like it. I think Matt liked it a lot more than I did, but Eugene was not a fan. Matthew was not a fan. I've played it twice now, first at 3 players and then also at 5 players. I suspect 4 players might be really good, or at least better play experiences than I had at 3 and 5. There was a weird thing at 5 where, like, the first couple turns you couldn't really do anything because of the bus limits. I'm not going into too much detail about how the game plays or the rules, but needless to say, we kind of struggled at 5. So anyway, that is Bus from Splotter and Capstone.
All right, very cool. Sean, I got in a play of something that I was surprised I hadn't played earlier. And this is a game, I think it may have just been released this year. It is a fairly recent release, but it's one that I thought I would have jumped on board really quickly on. Have you played Sushi Roll, Sean?
I have not.
So this is the dice version of Sushi Go. Sushi Go, for folks who don't know, is one of, I mean, it was the first drafting game I ever played. It is drafting at its core. It is dirt simple, right? You draft nigiri, you draft salmon rolls, you draft tempura, you draft all sorts of different things that will add up in the course of a round. You want to have the most pudding by the end of the game, or else you lose points if you have the least. That's the nuts and bolts, really quick description of Sushi Go. Sushi Roll is the dice implementation of this, and it was really an interestingly done thing. How this works is you will, at the start of each round, grab a number of dice out of the bag, and the dice have different types. So there's dice that provides more maki, which you score during the course of the round. There's dice that provide special powers and abilities, as well as the wasabi. There's dice that provide the tempura and some of the collect sets to match. And there's dice that, there's just different types of dice. You'll grab them out of the bag, you'll roll them, and then place them on your mat. You'll then go one at a time, drafting a dice from your own mat. However, there are chopsticks, which in this game let you swap one of the dice that are in front of you for one of the dice in front of another player. There's also one that allows you to re-roll. I think it's a menu. Allows you to re-roll as many of the dice that are in front of you as you would like to roll. And it results in some really interesting decisions. Do I press my luck here to try and get this thing? Do I go early in the round? It has all of those nice little drafting elements you find in Sushi Go. Do I go to collect a set of 3 to get 10 points? Because if I fall short, then I've just wasted a turn or two grabbing these cards. In this, you can't see exactly what's coming, because after you all draft a die, you then pass the conveyor belt to the next person. and then they'll re-roll the dice. So you'll never know exactly what you're going to get. You'll just know kind of the dice makeup, what's available, what's out there in the pool. But you won't know specifically what's coming to you. It played really well, Sean. It played really well. It was a great implementation of it. It's one that I would probably... I don't know if I'd look to play it over Sushi Go, because Sushi Go right now has the role of being a nice filler, entry-level game, great way to teach people some core concepts of games. Sushi Roll could kind of do that too. It's not super hard, but there's enough complication to it that I wouldn't go to it first. But as an experience for gamers, I could see this being a nice filler at a con, a nice filler in general. It's a good implementation. It's a good implementation of that system, and I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it. So that's
Interesting.
Cotton Candy, Sweet and Low. Let me see that Sushi Roll.
Perfect.
Anyway, well, that'll do it for what we've played this week. Let's head on over to the top 10 of the decade after a quick word from our sponsors. Sean, here at the Dukes of Dice, we always do things on time. You need a Valentine's Day episode? We'll get that to you about a week or two after Valentine's Day. You need a Halloween episode? I hope you like November Halloween episodes. So we tend to like running a little bit late, Sean. And good news, Game Toppers LLC has your back if you are a procrastinator like the Dukes of Dice are. Because late pledges for Game Toppers still open, Sean. Still open if you want to get on board with the ultimate gaming accessory.
Absolutely, Alex. So if you head on over to GameToppersLLC.com, you will find a link to Late Pledge Now. Do it now. Why should someone pick up a Game Topper, Alex?
Maybe you have a space like I do. A 2-bedroom, 1-bath, bottom floor of a townhouse. And look, I don't have room for an entire game room as much as I'd love to. I've taken over as much of this space as I can. But this table kind of has to stay a table. But it doesn't always have to be a table. If I want to, I can convert it into a lovely gaming table using a Game Topper. And when I'm done with it, there's room in the basement for everything to stow away nice and neat. And Abby doesn't have to get too much on my case for always taking up our entire living space with games.
So yeah, if you're interested in setting up something like that, getting a high-quality gaming experience, then head on over to GameToppersLLC.com.
Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Hey, Sean. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, but you can lay down a foundation pretty quickly. In a day? You think in a day? You can lay down a foundation in a day?
I think less than a day. I don't think it's going to be that long of a game, Alex. I think it's a game length you'd at least play.
Oh, that's good, because I'm pretty limited in that scope. Yeah, Foundations of Rome, coming soon from Arcane Wonders on Kickstarter. And Sean, you have seen this one before, and you've been excited by this one before.
Yes, Alex. This has some incredibly crafted, beautiful architectural miniatures, different distinct architectural styles for the different players. It creates this fantastic looking cityscape that really has to be seen to believe. The city building board game Foundations of Rome puts you into the role of an architect competing to own land and build magnificent structures. Build damus and insulae, fountains, wineries, and stables, then increase your renown by constructing majestic monuments such as a temple to Jupiter or the Colosseum itself. With over 100 wonderfully detailed miniatures, Foundations of Rome is a testament to the glory of Rome that you can bring to your table.
That looks pretty cool, and it's done by a pretty awesome designer in Emerson Matsuuchi, who has done a number of other Dutchy favorites. So, yeah, if you're curious about this game, go to foundationsofrome.com, click on the sign-up link to sign up to get notified when it goes live on Kickstarter. Arcane Wonders, it's never a blunder when you go with Arcane Wonders. All right, Sean, let's set this thing up, because we are at the end of a decade, though, as some annoying people occasionally point out. This isn't really the end of the decade, Sean. The end of the decade is, at the very worst, the best of the 2010s. Now, this was at the time you mentioned this, Sean, a wholly original idea.
Yes.
A wholly original Dukes of Dice idea. A predictable one, but an original one.
Yeah.
Since we had discussed doing this, I have seen a number of people take this approach, which I think makes sense. It's the end of the 2010s. I'm not surprised to see people do what we're about to do, which is look at each year individually name our favorite games of each year. And I think we'll also be talking, broadly speaking, how was that year as a gaming year?
And I will say this, Alex, the cease and desist letters are in the mail to all the other people doing this. And legal complaints will soon follow. So
excellent. Yep. Yeah. The one benefit of having an attorney on the show, right?
Right.
Have the Dukes of Dice ever actually been sued? I don't think we have.
What? No.
I don't know.
How would you wait? Why would you ask that? Like, and not like no. Like, like you wouldn't you know that? What?
Because I have been represented by you in a legal matter, but it was not Dukes of Dice related. Anyway. Sean, broad thoughts on the list before we dive right in?
Well, first, yes, Microsoft sued us of all people, and
yeah,
$7 million judgment, which I've been meaning to talk to you about, Alex.
Oh, good.
So here's what I did, right? Because well, let me put it this way first. So almost every year, I think we do our top 10 of the year. So top 10 of 2019, which is always weird because there's a bunch of stuff from Essen we haven't played yet. And right now there's already like 5 or 6 games where I'm like, oh, I bet you that could probably fall on the list if I had a chance to play them. Some years we've updated the list then in April of the following year. So April 2020, we would give you like our updated top 10 of 2019. So we want to do something a little bit different. It is the end of a decade, which kind of snuck up on me when you think about it, because I'm just like, wow, that's really a thing. So what I did is I went through, looked year by year. I did the advanced search on BGG, picked, published 2010 to 2010, so everything that year, and then just sorted them by rank. And I went through the top like 1,000-ish, 1,000, 1,500. Well, when I say that, I don't mean 1,500 games. I mean ranked from 1 to 1,500, right? So it might go from like 3 to 9 to 15, whatever. And so I have the top 3. My second and third, I'm just going to mention briefly, not going to talk about them too much. And then my top game. And then I also have a pick for you, Alex, for each year.
See, I didn't do that. Yeah, I didn't do that.
Okay. So we'll see how accurate that is. And I got to tell you, this was really tough. It was really tough to go through this. And there were some years where I picked out 3 games. Okay, which one's it going to be? There were a couple years, and we'll talk about them, where there were like 7 or 8 games. And I was like, oh my goodness, how do I pick one? And then how do I only, mention 2 runners up? So this was tough. This was a fun little exercise. And a lot of people in the guild partook. So if you go check out our guild, there's a bunch of top 10 of the decade, just like we've done, 1 game for each year. So I definitely suggest going to check that out, and then go post there too if you haven't done it, because it's a fun little exercise and a good way to kind of evaluate year by year.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, we typically will reference people's names from the guild as we go through things, just like we do with episode names. This time around, I sort of did. We're doing a guild consensus. I looked at what people had for each year, and I picked a game or a couple of games from that year that stood out as being named most often. So sorry for not reading individual names this time. There were just way. This episode would be 4 hours long if we went through all of everyone's top 10s. So thanks to everyone who contributed, though.
I coded an algorithm together, Alex, that we were able to input everything into and spit out the consensus.
No, I just counted. I just went through and counted. Yeah, that's what happened. All right, Sean, are you leading this off or am I leading this off?
Go ahead, Alex. 2010.
2010. It was a very good year. In 2010, Sean, that was the year I graduated from college.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Got my first job in TV news in 2010. And I was just about to discover board gaming. I had not really gotten into the hobby. Looking back at this year, there are some classic titles that are still in the mix. For me, I found 4 that were notable. Puzzle Strike, the first edition of Puzzle Strike came out in 2010. It's not the one that I ultimately named in the top 5 of all time way back when, but it was that was when it originated. Hanabi, that's one that has lasted. You still see that from time to time. The big one that got mentioned, and this was, I'll just mention this now, this was the guild pick, Seven Wonders. Seven Wonders has obviously lasted as a brand. It's another way that folks have gotten into drafting. A beautiful game. My top pick, however, from this year, Sean, is one that I have still played the most since that year. Do you know what it is? Since you made
No.
guesses, I'll pause here to have you guess.
My pick for you was Seven Wonders.
And I almost went there. But then I looked further down the list and noticed Lords of Vegas.
Oh, okay, cool.
Lords of Vegas, a fantastic game from that year. Lords of Vegas is an area control negotiation game. Effectively, at the start of each round, you're going to be flipping up a card from the deck. You'll be then given a lot somewhere on the board. You can swap lots with people. You can build casinos, try and take over. You can go and gamble in other people's casinos. This is a game, Sean, that very much still holds up. We've enjoyed it with the expansion, but this was an early favorite in the Duchy, and it's still one that I've played from time to time since. That is the one that has lasted better for me than Seven Wonders has. I really like Seven Wonders a lot. That would be my clear runner-up from this year, but Lords of Vegas is my pick for 2010.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Now, I will say overall, Sean, I did do another metric. I didn't make predictions for you, but I did occasionally make notes on the year, and the one that I made for every year is how many games are in the BGG top 200 from that year. And in 2010, there were only 6 games in the top 200. And I say only because, save for another year much later in the list, that is the fewest of any year.
Interesting.
Yep. So there you go, 2010.
All right. Well, so for 2010, I have 2 runners up. Lords of Vegas is one of them. Love that game. I think it's fantastic. And then also Vinos, Vital Lacerda game, which actually I just played again. I played the new copy a couple weeks ago with Matt and Eugene, and we played the old rules, not the updated rules. But my top game of 2010 is a game that I only really started playing in earnest within the last couple months. I had played it probably for the first time in 2014. And I was like, this is fine. This is good, but hadn't really come back to it. But I have played this game a ton this year. Any idea what it might be, Alex?
I don't know offhand, no.
Okay. It is a Carl Chudik game.
Oh, Innovation. Ah.
Man, I love this game. So Carl Chudik, one of my favorite card game designers. This is multi-use cards. It's a Civ building game, essentially. And you are taking 2 actions a turn. You're either drawing cards from one of the 10 age decks based on where your civilization is. And you're either drawing a card or you're melding cards, playing them onto your play area, or you're taking actions from cards that you already have in play. There's some really cool combos. It could be a really mean game. This is, I don't know, Alex. This is, I've played a ton of Innovation recently. I've played a ton of Glory to Rome recently, played a fair amount of Motainai. And right now, for the longest time, Motainai had been the clear winner of the Carl Chudik games. I don't know. I can't tell you what it is. It's one of those 3. They're just kind of circling around each other. It's good. Innovation's a fantastic game. I have the deluxe edition. I've done all sorts of, they're all sleeved. I've got this elaborate deck holder printed 3D printed setup going. I love this game. Innovation is fantastic. So that's my 2010 top pick. All right, 2011 is a pretty decent year. My runners-up were Trajan from Stefan Feld and Or Labora from Uwe Rosenberg. Both just fantastic games. Trajan, Raquel and I play all the time. Or Labora is a game that I have not played in a couple years, but man, it's constantly top of mind. I'm constantly thinking, not constantly thinking about this game. That's not true. On occasion, I think about it, and I'm like, oh, I should play that. But I think my top pick of 2011 should be no surprise, Alex.
I think we have the same pick.
I predicted this for you as well, and it's Castles of Burgundy, another Stefan Feld game, which is like my number 3 or I think it's my 3 or 4 top game of all time. I love this game so much. It is a action selection game based off 2 dice that you roll each turn. You are taking these little hexes from these supply depots in the center of this main board, which you're then using to place them onto your board, which give you certain bonuses. You get bonus actions. And then as you complete certain areas of your board, you're getting additional points and bonuses and things like that. Man, I love this game so much. It doesn't matter if I'm playing it in real life, if I'm playing it on the iOS app. I love Castles of Burgundy. It is so good. It's not the heaviest Feld game, but it's the most satisfying Feld game for me.
I had recently gotten onto a string of playing castles either one-on-one versus the Name Father, my arch nemesis and rival, or the Name Father and BJ from Board Game Gumbo, and it was just another reminder of how fantastic this game is, how brilliant. It's just one of those where mechanics shine overall because it's not one that's gorgeous. It's not one that's it's just lasted. It's lasted for a reason. I would say, Sean, 2011 is peak Feld, right? You have Trajan that year as well. To have those two games come out in the same year, he was on a big time hot streak at the time.
Yeah, big time.
I didn't really have any others that were top picks. Other notable games, at least for me and more my taste. King of Tokyo came out in 2011, and Takanoko. But yeah, this was a fairly weak year as I'm comparing, especially to the year that follows and some of the other ones. It did have 12 games in the top 200, so better than 2010. But yeah, other than Castles of Burgundy and Trajan, I didn't take a ton out of 2011 necessarily. 2011, Sean, was when I got my job in Albuquerque in TV news. It was before I'd met you. We hadn't met yet, but I was playing games, and I had gotten my job in TV news in Albuquerque.
Let me take a step back. So I'll say in 2010, I was just graduating from law school, and I had just moved from Tucson to Albuquerque. But yeah, 2011, I've been working, just started working as an attorney. So
very good.
All right, you're up first for 2012, Alex.
2012, Sean, this is your favorite year. This has to be your favorite year.
You know what? It's going to be a toss-up between 20. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But yeah,
okay.
It's a crazy year.
That's an insane year. Well, one of the games that makes it insane for Sean is Resistance Avalon. That's a Sean Ramirez classic. Don't play this game with him; he will win. Love Letter and Coup have also lasted. I kind of put Coup in italics on my list as sort of one of those that's a lost to time classic. It's one that I played a ton and have not played in recent years. Have not played at all in recent years.
I play it pretty regularly whenever I see Andy and Ellie.
Okay.
Andy loves it. We don't play it too much here at Empire, but I get enough plays of it in on a fairly regular basis.
My favorite game from this year, though, was one much like your 2010 pick, one that I did not discover until later. Did not play it until a number of years later. Sean, did you get this? I think you might have.
I think so. Is it Targi?
It is Targi.
Yes! Oh, I'm so good.
One of the greatest two-player games of all time. The greatest. The intersection mechanic. Targi, for folks who don't know, you're playing as, the theme isn't really super important, but you're spice traders, I guess. You're picking up salt, pepper, and dates. You're then using those to bring different kinds of merchants, camel riders, and maidens and other folks into your fold. You have a grid of 12 cards in front of you. There's a robber that goes around the outside. How the mechanic works is it's worker placement. You're going to place three people on the outside, and then they will make intersections, and you get the actions on the outside that you picked, as well as the two intersections that you met in the middle. Brilliant game. Really brilliant game. I'm bummed I didn't discover it sooner. It's probably the most complicated game that Abby really enjoys.
Yeah.
So that helps it too. Targi is an absolute hidden gem from that year. I should mention, we didn't mention in 2011, the guild pick for that was Castles of Burgundy. We'll talk about guild picks after we get to yours, Sean, because as I mentioned, this is an absolutely crazy year for you. I don't want to list all of them for you. I want you to go ahead and just list these games that you love. But I wrote down at least 5 that are games that I don't necessarily care about, but that you are in love with. With. And before that, 2012 was the year that Jillian moved from Michigan to Albuquerque. It was also the year we met because we played in spring kickball of that year.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I moved to New Mexico too late for us to have played in fall the previous year, so I have to think it was spring of that year. So yeah, that's the year that we met. Was in the year of 2012. So 16 games in the top 200, I should say, up from 2011, and an overall better year than the previous two.
So let's see. In 2012, I was just hitting my stride as an attorney. And game-wise, I wasn't doing a whole lot of board games. This is when I was probably hanging out a lot with like Roberto and Erica and them.
Yep.
And so tons of Magic. Like, I mean, Magic, 2010, 2011, it was all Magic all the time. I think I was cubing and I was playing tons of Commander, tons of Magic. 2012, like looking at this, and this was the year where I was probably getting back into board gaming, I would say. And so a lot of titles, I remember, okay, wow, here are the runners up to the runners up, Alex.
Oh boy.
Descent second edition.
Yep.
Which I still love. I played the solo game of it I guess it's more like a year and a half ago. And I'd love to play the app solo, just have it set up, whatever. Android Netrunner, just incredible. I remember hearing this game was coming out because I'd played the old Netrunner CCG back in the day. Super excited, fantastic game. Terra Mystica, Lords of Waterdeep. I mean, oh my goodness. Here are the actual runners up. Zolkin, the Mayan calendar, which was a number one game for the longest time. And then you already mentioned it, the Resistance Avalon. But of course, my number one game is going to be what was my number one game of all time for many, many years, which just recently fell to Magic. And that's Kemet. Kemet is just a fantastic dudes on a map game. I've talked about it a billion times, but if you're new to the podcast, if you're looking for a dudes on a map, kind of a modern successor to Risk, then this is the game. It is a fantastic action selection game. There's a couple different ways to play now. You've got the, all versus, everyone's fighting each other. There's also a one versus many version with the set expansion. I love Kemet. But yeah, this is a crazy, crazy year. I'm looking at this list of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and any one of those is just a good time. Man, what a crazy year 2012 is.
Yeah, nuts.
Did I miss any? Were there any you had for me that
I'm rereading my list. I'm trying to think. Did you say, okay, you said Netrunner, you said Descent, you said Terra Mystica, Zolkin, Kemet.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Those are the ones. Those are the ones I wrote down.
Crazy year.
An insane year.
Yeah.
The guild pick, by the way, was shared between Zolkin and I have not played this game, Sean, Keyflower.
Oh, you haven't played Keyflower?
I don't think so.
Huh. Keyflower is great. Oh man. Talk about a fantastic midweight Euro. Whew. Keyflower. Where it's at.
All right. Well, that's 2012, Sean's favorite year ever.
Well, I don't know. Let me think about that. Well, yeah, maybe you're right. All right. So 2013, which when we were talking before the podcast, you were kind of like, it wasn't that strong of a year. And I was just like, what? Because there's some crazy stuff out for me. Runners up to the runners up, Bora Bora, Battle Lore 2nd Edition, and Madeira, all fantastic games. The actual runners up, see, I'm just kind of cheating here, Alex. I couldn't make the hard decisions.
Sure.
Viticulture from Stonemaier Games, fantastic worker placement game. Concordia, which is just a wonderful, wonderful game.
Concordia, by the way, the guild pick, and it wasn't close.
But my top pick of 2013. Oh, by the way, this was the year that Raquel and I met, right? Yeah, that's the year Raquel and I met, June of 2013. My top pick is Russian Railroads.
Okay.
Russian Railroads. I love this game. I play it at least twice a year. It comes out pretty regularly. And whether it's the German expansion or any of the other expansions, it's just a fantastic game. It's a worker placement game where it's engine building, pun somewhat intended. You're building these different railroad tracks, and as you build them, you're kind of generating more and more points and more bonuses. Some cool combos. Man, I love Russian Railroads. It is super good.
Sean, was this was not the year that we started the Dukes of Dice, though, was it?
No, we started in 2014.
That's what I thought. So this was 2013 was the year that I really started getting hardcore into gaming.
Right.
I was over at your place a bunch playing games in that year. This was one where the friendship was growing. I was growing a little more as a reporter. I hadn't really done much anchoring. I was still filling in more on the sports desk. If I look at the games from this year, there are some solid selections. But if you look at it as a whole, it's not as deep of a year as some other years. The year before has 16 in the top 200. This year has 9 still in the top 200. Sean, you mentioned a lot of the ones I was going to talk about. Bora Bora is a great one from Stefan Feld. I did not like that one the first time I played it, but it really grew on me the second time I played it. Battlelore 2nd Edition, Hanamakoji is one that I still play all the time with Abby. Glass Road, Sushi Go, and Smash Up are all ones that are of that year. Sean, were any of those your picks for me?
I picked Viticulture for you.
You are correct. It is Viticulture. Yeah, an amazing worker placement game. Gorgeous, really thematic. Yeah, sensational. And I feel like this is as good a time as any, because this will come up later in this, to say that, hey, even from an early time, I was really a big fan of Stonemaier games. And this was one of the first ones that I was like, oh man, this is a straight 6. This is really good. It is not the last time a Stonemaier game makes an appearance on this game. Nowhere close. And I am now good friends with Jamie. I certainly was not at the time. Yeah. He certainly makes a big splash this decade. This was one of the first ones, though. Viticulture, my top pick of 2013. Really great game. But yeah, as a year, little lower down. Sean, I noticed a couple of forgotten gems, games that we played a bunch at the time, and I don't think we would even come close to playing now. One is Rise of Augustus.
Oh, yeah.
Bingo. That's basically gamer bingo.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rampage, or as it's now known, Terror in Meeple City.
Sure.
I think I just got rid of that not too long ago. That was one that came to the table a lot.
Huh. I've been holding on to it for Chewy. In fact, we're probably there.
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah, you can play that with Chewy now.
I'll say this: she got an A-Wing Lego set for Christmas with Snap Wexley, who is my doppelganger.
Okay,
he looks exactly. It's Greg Grunberg from Felicity, and anyway, we built an X-Wing last Christmas, and she just could not do it. She didn't have. Like, she couldn't read the instructions with the pictures, right, of where you place the pieces and how they relate and which direction they go. And also the fine motor skills of just, like, putting them together. Like, it was a struggle. This year, holy cow, like, it is just leaps and bounds beyond where she was last year. She had all the spatial reasoning to put it together. It was really cool. So I think a game like this, like Terror in Meeple City or Rampage, might be able to play. So I've been holding on to it because I certainly haven't had a desire to play it. But I think it might be time to dust it off, Alex.
Fair enough. All right, now, Sean, we get into 4 years in a row that I think are really, 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 really tough. And I think if I'm looking at the list, this might be the best year for me. I just looked for notable games, and I just kept listing games for 2014. I could not stop. I kept pulling, and even things that I didn't play at the time that have persisted in some form or fashion. This was, for me, probably my favorite year or a deep year. It doesn't have the highest of highs, but man, is it stacked. So 20 games in the top 200, third most out of any year in the decade. This year had 5 Tribes, Roll for the Galaxy, Splendor, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, Onitama, Sheriff of Nottingham, Clask, Colt Express, Evolution, Camel Up, Deep Sea Adventure. Wow. A crazy, absolutely crazy year.
You did not mention your pick, though, right?
I did not mention my pick.
Okay, good. I was
you guessed this one correctly. This one would be hard to get wrong. My pick, by the way, shared with the Guild. The Guild and I of a similar mind on this one. We both picked Patchwork. Patchwork is our game of the year of 2014. Another amazing 2-player game. And as I'm looking through this list, a lot of my picks are 2-player or 2-player friendly games. So 2014, obviously, by the way, the year of the Dukes of Dice are founded. We started in middle of this year. Sean comes to me and says, "Hey, why don't we do a podcast?" And I said, "Who wants to hear that?" And here we are, still doing this in almost 2020. Sean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty.
Yeah, crazy. I have a 3-month-old, and I'm like, oh, you know what? It's a good time to start a podcast.
Oh man. I always mix up those two events in my mind, by the way. I always think Chewy came after the podcast because that makes more sense as far as Sean actually having the time to fully commit to this. Patchwork, by the way, brilliant 2-player game, uses Tetris It's the first game I ever played with Abby, who doesn't pop into my life for a number of years, but it's the first game I ever played with her, so it's obviously going to hold a special place in my heart for that reason alone. The game itself is rock solid, really stands up well. Elegant, simple mechanics. This use of buttons and time, buttons being the currency of the game, time also being a currency. If you haven't played this one, do yourself a favor and play this game. It is a true gem, and my favorite one that Uwe ever designed. I know it's not. I don't think it's your favorite Uwe, but it is my personal favorite. So that's
it's up there. It's excellent.
2014, a crazy year. I will say Colt Express and to a lesser degree Sheriff of Nottingham are ones that I haven't seen hit the table as much, but Colt Express is so fun. Colt from that year. Anyway, I could go on and on about 2014. It was a really good, really deep year. Over to you, Sean.
Okay. So I've got this was rough. So just the runners up, the two runners up. Roll for the Galaxy, which is just fantastic. I love it so much. And then a fantastic trick-taking game by our friend Mike Fitzgerald, Diamonds.
Yeah, I forgot to mention Diamonds. Yeah.
I love Diamonds. Okay, but the winner is Five Tribes. Tribes. So it's interesting because, man, I was so torn on this game when we first reviewed it. And we reviewed it probably in 2014 or early 2015.
And you didn't like it.
I was confused by it. I'm like, there's things I like about it, but it's weird. So it's interesting. It's basically this board, this modular board with all of these square tiles that have different bonuses and actions on them. And then you have a bunch of different colored meeples just kind of thrown out onto the board, and you're picking all of them up. It's this Mancala mechanic where you pick all of the meeples up from one square and you form a path with them wherever you want to go. Dropping one meeple off at a time, and the final meeple you drop off has to match in color meeples on the intended square, and it gives you an action for that square and then an action for the color of meeple that you're pulling off. It's all sorts of craziness. I own all the expansions. My preferred player count is 2. I think it's a great 2-player game. I'll play it at higher player counts, no problem, but 2 is really where it's at. And we play this, Raquel and I play this a couple times a year. It is just fantastic. And it's interesting to see how certain games need a little bit of time to breathe. And this is definitely one of those games for me, at least. So I love it. I think it's fantastic. So that's Five Tribes for me for 2014. Any other thoughts on 2014, Alex?
No, like I said, that may be my peak year. I don't know. We'll talk about this as we go through. The ones that follow are heavy hitting years, though, for sure. I think this for me is the deepest year as far as my taste in games.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so for 2015, wow, boy, Alex, my top game was easy. Picking 2 runners up was not easy, and here's why. I'm just going to list these games off. Food Chain Magnate.
Blech.
Voyages of Marco Polo. A lesser bleh, right?
Yeah.
For you?
No, I mean, not to the point where I'm like, oh boy, no, screw you. No, not that bad.
Mombasa. Codenames. Nippon. Elysium. Signore. I don't know. I just don't know. Those are any of those as runner-ups. It's a really strong year, and none of those are necessarily as flashy as the 2012 year, but just some very solid, with the exception of Codenames, some very solid midweight Euros, and Food Chain Magnate being an economic game. But like when I think of just a handful of midweight Euros and all of the midweight Euros that have come out since, I'm just like, this is what you've got to beat. And it's solid. And here's what I didn't mention, Alex. I did not mention baseball highlights. You know what I mean?
First mention,
and I suspect that that's going to be your choice. But yeah, for me, it's Motainai. I mean, Carl Chudik is just, man, I love his games. Motainai, another multi-use card game similar to Glory to Rome, and it's so hard, so difficult to teach. And it's one of those games where it does need to breathe, and you are rewarded if you can kind of stick it out. You're basically a monk trying to create various works in the two wings of the monastery. And you're doing this through very interesting card play where the cards have certain roles on them, but which also corresponds to certain types of materials. And you're trying to gather enough of these things to build these works, which then give you special abilities. It is such a good game. I love it. I love it so much. So that is my pick for 2015, Motainai.
So, I mean, at the top end, this is an amazing year for me. Obviously, Baseball Highlights is the pick. There's no question about that. Motainai is a strong second game to have in that year. I also wrote down Broom Service from that year. Codenames as a system, which has persisted and later becomes Codenames Duet, which wasn't my favorite game of the year in the year it came out in, but was the second game I ever played with Abby. So yeah, that one holds a place too. The Gallerist, Mysterium, Stockpile, and Elysium. Elysium, criminally underrated game. I desperately wish that expansion would come out. I should mention in my personal life in 2015, that was, I think, the year I went to Costa Rica. I was in the middle of anchoring. I was the weekend evening anchor, and I had just signed that contract late the year before, had really kind of jumped into it in earnest in 2015. 2015 was relatively calm and stable, and it sets the stage for an insane 2016 into 2017. So, but yeah, that year at the top end is great. It had 21 games in the top 200, so one more than the year before. Really solid year, though, if you look back on it. Really solid year, 2015. Let me look at the guild picks. The guild pick for 2015, Argent the Consortium, which we didn't even mention, and Blood Rage. Those two games were the ones that were the guild picks for that year.
And I'll say, too, personally, 2015 was the year. So it was actually the tail end of 2014. I left my first job for a different job at a foreclosure firm. And I left shortly the first couple months in 2016. So 2015 was when I was there and did not enjoy it there at all.
You were embracing your dark side.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on into 2016. And this is a contender for, I think, best overall game year of the decade, and could be my favorite game year as well. It's backed up by the fact that this had the most games in the top 200 of any year of the decade. 24 of the top 200 came from the year 2016. Some games to mention: Terraforming Mars, might be Sean's pick, I'm not sure. Great Western Trail, Clank, the Exit series of games, King Domino, Millennium Blades, kind of the hidden, forgotten gem of this year. It's not that long ago, but I haven't played Millennium Blades in a minute, Sean.
Yeah, it's been a while. That
game's fantastic. First Class was one that I liked so much I named initially in the top 10 of I think the year after. So yeah, First Class, really good. That one's held up. I've been playing that one online quite a bit. Happy Salmon, the only game I traveled the world with. And this one's an under the radar one, but Mr. Cabbagehead's Garden Game, one of my top games, also comes from this year. None of those are my pick, and this has a chance to be your pick as well. Actually, I think I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, Scythe. Scythe is my pick from this year. Tremendous blend of that Euro Ameritrash vibe, amazing theme, gorgeous art, a stunning game, a truly stunning game, and one that I also haven't played in nearly. I haven't played this one as often as I want to, partly because I'm still undefeated in it. And I think that keeps me from getting to the table. I need someone to just beat me at this game so I can play it more, Sean.
So, yeah, I picked Scythe for you.
Yep.
And Scythe is also my top pick.
Okay.
And it's interesting. I've probably played Terraforming Mars more than Scythe.
Mm-hmm.
But part of that is because, man, it seems like everyone knows how to play Terraforming Mars. And it seems like there's more opportunities where you would have to teach Scythe to new players. Like, I feel like I'm constantly teaching the game to new players, whereas Terraforming Mars, I'm not. And that makes Terraforming Mars a little bit, well, I guess accessible is not the right word, but just easier to get to the table.
Sure.
Right. But no, Scythe is just fantastic. It's just a great action selection game, resource management with the threat of combat. There's fantastic long-term strategy and tough, tactical decisions based on the board state. It's just fantastic, just fantastic art. Wow. Some of the runners up that you didn't mention, there's Lorenzo Magnifico and The Colonists, which you need to play The Colonists, Alex. I think you would like playing the first 2 ages. I think I've said that before.
You have said this before. Yeah.
I think you would really just play age 1 to age 2, done.
Okay.
Past that, you're not going to play an 8-hour game. So
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I will say, Sean, this was probably the craziest year for me among all of the years, if only because there were a lot of endings in that year. This was a year where the relationship with Jillian came to an end. It was also the year where my career in TV news came to an end. Contract wrapped up, and I was ready to be done, and I was done. So yeah, that was enough news for that year. Year
Sure.
2016.
And this was the year that I started working at the law firm that I'm currently at, or at least a certain incarnation of it. So, yeah. All right. So 2017 was kind of a weird year for me.
This is more of an Alex year than a Sean year, I think, looking at some of my top picks.
Yeah. And in fact, I reset what I have here. I don't know what my pick is. We're going to figure this out.
Ooh, interesting.
Right? So I've got 4 games here. Lisboa, another Vital Lacerda game. Downforce from Restoration Games. Fox in the Forest, a 2-player trick-taking game. And then Heaven and Ale. And I don't think it's going to be Heaven and Ale. I think it's going to, oh boy, I don't know. So I had something selected. And then I looked at 2017. I was just like, I don't know. Like this, I don't know if this is right. But I think it is. I'm going to go with what I had. What do you think my pick is going to be between Lisboa, Downforce, and Fox in the Forest?
Between those 3.
Yeah.
So the guild pick was Gloomhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Lisboa was second. Near and Far was third on the guild. Lisboa? Is it Lisboa?
No, it's not. And I think that'd be the smart pick. And by the way, yeah, Gloomhaven was not on the list. There's a lot to like about Gloomhaven, but I've had some issues with it. But anyway, it's going to be Fox in the Forest, it just seems like a weird pick for me. But it's a game that Raquel and I will play fairly often. Just a 2-player trick-taking game. Like it's kind of mind-blowing. So yeah, that's my pick.
This year didn't quite hit the heights of the previous 2.
No.
But there's a lot of solid picks in this year. I don't think it's a dud of a year by any means. It has 19 of the top 200 on BGG, so pretty close to the 3 years before it. It just ends up being a little bit down. Near and Far, Azul, Pulsar 2849 is an amazing game from that year. Downforce, I found myself playing way more than I expected to. Fox in the Forest is another great one. And Codenames Duet, the game I mentioned earlier, was the second game I ever played with Abby. But my pick from this year is an entirely different 2-player game. Sean, did you get this correct?
Of course I did. Fog of Love.
Fog of Love. Fog of Love, the romantic comedy board game that I need to play more of, but I've never seen a game play with cooperative, competitive in such an interesting way. Because someone has asked me, is this a competitive game or cooperative game? It kind of isn't either. Yeah, it isn't either. There's individual win conditions that may or may not end up being something that you're looking for competitively or cooperatively. One of my favorite gaming moments ever was Abby completely unexpectedly pulling the rug out from under me with a heartbreaker move on the very last turn of the game. I was so proud of her. I have never been more proud to lose a game. Never been more proud. So that's, Fog of Love. Decent, solid year. Really solid year. There's a ton of good picks. I might say the year after's, it's about comparable. 2017 and 2018 are pretty comparable. We'll talk about it, though, as we get into it. Personally, 2017, that was the year I took my extended absence from the Duchy, traveled the world for 3.5, 4 months, and ended up moving to St. Louis and getting a job in board gaming. So that's 2017. 2018, 16 games in the top 200, Sean. 16 games in the top 200. This is the year of Wolfgang Warsch.
Yes.
Dominates this year. Dominates in the Spiel and Kenner Spiel and says, hello, I'm here in a big, big, big way. Comes out with Ganz schon clever, comes out with Quacks of Quedlinburg, and comes out with my pick for this year. This one's obvious, Sean. You could, if you didn't guess this, I would have been stunned. The Mind, my favorite game of the year. Game I played over the holidays and still gives me that great experience of connection. The game that uses connection as a mechanic in a brilliant way. A game so simple you can't believe it didn't exist before, but I'm so happy it exists now. So, The Mind, really, really dug it. Welcome to, also in this year, has been one that has held up very well. I've played that one a ton. Detective, really nice game. Hardback was one that stuck out to me as a game I really loved from that year. Just One, a long-lasting party game. And then a game that I loved, but I've played far, far less that's kind of faded fast for me was Keyforge. I just have not played any Keyforge, Sean.
Yeah.
Almost none of it.
Nor have I.
Yeah. So 2018, I'd say overall a fairly solid year. Obviously, you don't have a full shape of a year for a few years after, but I think it certainly has held up. If you look at it in terms of a number of games in the top 200, it looks like it's on the decline. I don't know if that's necessarily gonna totally prove to be true. But if it's just The Mind alone and just Wolfgang Warsch that comes out of that year, I'm perfectly happy with that. So 2018 is the year I met Abby, which is a pretty significant milestone for me. So yeah, that's 2018, Sean.
So yeah, a couple observations. Yeah, you're right. Wolfgang Warsch, man, just crazy. And I should mention I did play. You still haven't played Taverns of
Tiefenthal.
Tiefenthal, yeah, I think.
I have not.
Alex, play it. Play it.
Oh,
play it.
really?
Play it. Yeah. So Jake and Danielle from Draft Mechanic were in town right before the holidays, and we went to Empire. And Jake taught this. Wow, this was really good. I'll talk more about that in a future episode. In fact, our next review game, I played my first play of that with them. So just kind of saving that discussion for next episode. Also, going back to 2017, I remember thinking, wow, 2017 was kind of a lackluster year at the time, especially after the barnstormer that 2016 was with Terraforming Mars and Scythe and things like that. 2018, though, for me, really turned up the heat. So I'm going to give you my runners-up to the runners-up again. Teotihuacan, Detective, The Mind. For the actual runners-up, Underwater Cities, which, boy, such a good, like, medium-heavy Euro game. Lords of Hellas, a great Dudes on the Map game. Doesn't come close to Kemet, but still quite good. My top pick, Alex, it's kind of a shocker in some ways, but makes perfect sense in others. Any idea what that's going to be?
I'm completely lost. I should know this.
Quacks.
Oh, it's Quacks. Wow.
It's Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Wow.
I play this all the time.
This
comes out all the time. It is such a great game to play with newer players. It's an easy teach. It creates these fun narrative moments. You get excited. You're yelling and screaming, and it's a great push your luck game that is fairly simple mechanically, but creates really memorable play experiences. It's just really good. So yeah, that's my pick for 2018, Quacks of Quedlinburg. So before we do 2019, let me say, Alex, that I'm currently 8 for 9 for my predictions for you.
Oh, Sean, can I mention one other thing?
Oh, sure.
Coimbra was the guild pick for 2018, which I didn't even really talk about. That game is fantastic.
No, it is really good. And would be on my short list, I think. Oh, 2018 was also the year that I purchased the law firm.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. All right. 2019. This was an interesting year. I have 3 games on my list, and that's it. And I don't know. I could see that. I could see that going up again a year from now, because with all of these games, we've had the hindsight of an additional, in some cases, couple years, in other cases, almost a full decade to get more plays in of more games to kind of fill out that year. So I would suspect that this would be a tougher decision possibly a couple of years from now. And so there's a bunch of capstone games that have come out at the end of the year that I haven't played yet. There's Maracaibo, there's Cooper Island that I suspect are, would be contenders, but who knows? So my runners up are Pipeline from Capstone Games, which is just a fantastic economic game, super mean, super tense. My uncharacteristic AP comes shining through in this game. Boy, it's rough. And then the other runner up is Marvel Champions.
Oh, I thought that was going to be the pick. I would have been off. Oh man.
Yeah. Alex, you will have no idea what my pick is because I have not talked about this yet. This came in under the wire. I got 3 plays of this in the last 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah. And guess what? It's a GMT game, Alex.
Oh boy.
It is Tank Duel, Enemy in the Crosshairs.
Uh-huh.
Alex, look it up real quick while I explain it briefly. Look it up real quick.
Oh,
look it up.
I really
look it up.
don't want to.
Oh, come on.
All right, I'm looking it up. You keep talking about it.
Tank Duel, Enemy of the Crosshairs is a game for 1 to 8 players, where it's usually a team game. So far, I've just played 1-on-1. I think it will shine quite a bit 2-on-2 or possibly 2-on-1, and there's ways to deal with that, where you're commanding these World War II tanks, Germans versus the Russians, and there's a whole bunch of different tanks, and you fill it with your crew. You've got gunners and loaders and drivers, assistant drivers, your commander. And there is no map to this game. It is this abstracted movement system where you both start usually about 800 meters away from the line of scrimmage. And as you move, you're just tracking your movement. You're getting closer. It's completely card driven, much like a game like Combat Commander. Hey, one of my favorite games of all time. So that kind of makes sense that I would like this. So the cards that you play are going to allow you to move, allow you to fire, and a whole bunch of other different actions. But you're also able to augment those cards that you play. So for example, if I want to move, I can move 200 meters closer with this one move card, or I can play 2 move cards together to move 400 meters. And then I can combine that with a terrain card because I want to hop from one terrain piece to the next. So I play a woods card, for example, which is going to give me some cover and also might allow me to become concealed so people will lose the spots they have on me. This game, despite not having a map, is incredibly cinematic. I've played this so far with Matt, Nick, and Rory. So I've taught 3 different people this game, and every time it feels incredibly cinematic. Even though there's no map to it, I can just see these tanks lumbering out from behind the woods and making a dash to this building over here for cover, taking a pot shot. Oh, it's really good. The combat system all comes from the deck. It's all, like I said, card driven. Every card in the deck was numbered 1 to 100. So it's a percentile system. So based on the range you're at, your particular gun needs a certain percentage to hit. With modifiers for being in cover and all sorts of stuff, you flip over a card. If it's that percentage or less, it's a hit. Then you check to see whether you're hitting the tracks, the hull, or the turret. And then you flip another card to see if it's penetrating, again, based on range and based on the side of your gun. Then there's this random damage card. Man, it is incredible. This game is super good. It is, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say, Alex.
Sean, I want to try this.
I think you would like this.
I'm looking at it, and I want to try this. I'm looking visually. Does it actually have a little swivelly part on the top that goes for the aim, or no? Or is that all printed? I can't tell from these pictures.
No, and the aim is abstracted. There are ways to flank tanks, and so here's the deal. This was not something that I P500. I mean, I don't P500 everything. There's way too much stuff that comes out from GMT, and I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. I've got a tank. World War II tank game called Panzer that does use a map. And I was like, that's probably fine. I don't need this. And then after it came out from P500, I saw it on social media. I saw it on Board Game Geek, and people were just going crazy for this game. And I told Rory, I'm like, get us a copy. We got to play this. So I've done the full 9 yards on this game. Everything's sleeved. I've got an elaborate 3D printed deck holders and everything. I did a playmat. If you go on Twitter, Alex, I hand drew this playmat that I did to kind of help everyone along in the shooting process, because you can kind of get lost because you're flipping over at, on average 4 cards, possibly more if there are these fire and explosion checks. It's really good. I mean, this is a 6, and this could be a true definition for a 6. I might like this more than Combat Commander, Alex.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. That time will tell, but certainly this is, after the last 2 weeks, my game of the year. 3 plays, this is for sure my game of the year.
So, Sean, as you were talking about it overall, it is too early to assess a year. It's way too early to assess this year.
It's rough.
It's looking like it's going to be a weak year.
Yeah.
It's looking overall like it'll end up being a weak year. But there's some games we haven't even played. I haven't played Taverns of Tiefenthal. I haven't played Maracaibo. I haven't played a number of things that have come out either at Essen or even from Gen Con that I may really love. But it strikes me as overall maybe a weaker year. Some games that I look to, Doppelt So Clever came out this year, the sequel to Gons, and I think fantastic game. Watergate, which I know you didn't like as much, but was one that struck me as a runner-up. Wavelength from Wolfgang Warsch, which I played a whole bunch over the holidays. I tend to end up being a game show host with that more than I actually end up playing it for whatever reason. I like Wavelength a good amount. My pick for the year, though, Sean, is the same pick the Guild had, and my guess is you're going to get 9 out of 10.
Yes.
It's Wingspan. Wingspan from Stonemaier Games. This is one that has taken over in a big way. It's the first time I've ever bought my mom a game expansion, or even a game, really, for a Christmas present, and had her be very stoked about it. She loves this game. I've taught this game to other folks here in St. Louis. There's a ton of depth to it. It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. It does the theme justice. It does engine building better than just about any other game I've seen do engine building. I think it's a brilliant game. So it's my clear pick for this year right now as game of the year, but way, way too early to judge, I think. We will know better. We may revisit this into a top 6 of the year in May or June, just sometime later in the year once we've had a chance to catch up a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. So there you go, Sean. We have traipsed through the decade. Do you have a favorite year looking back now that we've kind of talked through everything?
Yeah, so it's interesting, like 2015, that was the year with Food Chain Magnate, Voyages Marco Polo, Signore, Elysium, Nippon, Mombasa. Like that's just a really solid year. But 2012, which was the Zolkin, Kemet, Descent year, Android Netrunner, it's tough to pick those. Like I feel like in the long run, the 2012 games beat out the 2015 games.
I think so. That's a more Sean year to me, is 2012. For me, Sean, despite the depth of 2014, I think probably 2016 is my favorite year, just for the sheer variety of great games. You have the Exit series, and you have Scythe, you have Terraforming Mars, you have Happy Salmon. You have a lot of different bases covered in that year. So
right.
2016 is pretty high up there. Though 2014, I think, would be a runner-up just for the sheer depth of that year. So there you go, Sean. Top 10 of the decade. We did it.
Woo!
Woo! All right. Well, thanks to everyone on the Guild who provided their thoughts. And let's head on over to the Double Take.
You are listening to the Dukes of Dice, proud members of the Dice Tower Network. For other great shows in the network, check out Dicetowernetwork.com. Back to Alex and Sean for this week's Dukes Double Take.
All right, Sean, we're fulfilling our Feld-mas obligations very late in the episode. Going back to episode 191, Seasing's Greetings, where we reviewed Carpe Diem. And Sean, we were very much on a different page on this one. I gave this one a 4. I said I enjoyed it gameplay-wise almost as much as a 5, but there were production issues that got in the way and dropped it. And I think production issues and component issues were something that got mentioned by a lot of people because, hey, they almost immediately published a second edition of this. Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Sean, you were a very naughty boy in episode 191. You said you were only keeping this game because it was a Feld. It's a better game than a 2, but it was your least favorite Feld, and you did ultimately unleash the 2 on Carpe Diem.
Heck yeah, I did.
Any regrets on unleashing the 2 on Carpe Diem?
Zero regrets, because I got rid of it. And
you got rid of it?
Yeah, I got rid of it. Raquel has to sign off to get rid of a Feld, and she was like, "Yeah, get rid of it. We are never going to play this."
Wow.
Yeah.
Kicked to the curb
by Raquel.
Does it drop below a 2 to a 1 for that reason?
No. It's still a 2. Game has some merit, but has significant issues.
Okay. Sean, I have not played this one. Maybe I played it once. I think I played it at Geekway since this all occurred. My thoughts are pretty much the same. It's I think a solid Feld. I like the lighter end of the spectrum. The original production bugged me. I haven't seen a need to go out and get a new copy of this. So, yeah, I don't know. So, probably stays at a low 4, but it's a hesitant 1. It probably is actually a 3, but I think Feld is sort of the spirit of Feld-mas. I feel bad that we forgot this holiday, so I'm going to not drop it too far here, Sean. Adam Dalton on the Guild says, for Carpe Diem, I really enjoy it. Plays extremely quickly, feels good when you get just the right tile and grab it right before your opponent can get it. All the production issues have been noted in the past. I resolved the colored backs problem by using a marker and putting a dot on the dark green tiles, dark in quotes. This is a 5 on the ducal scale for me. Sylvain Lacroix says, Carpe Diem is a forgettable game. Low production quality, even for that kind of game where it's usually not problematic. Interesting gameplay, but not enough for me want to play it again. Gives it a 3 on the ducal scale. And that was it. That's all the Guild had to say about this Feld game. So, yeah, not high marks for this one, Sean. I'm assuming your score has not changed.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, we talked about that.
We
did.
Still
a 2.
I'm very forgettable, Sean. Wait, very forgetful, not forgettable. I'm not forgettable, Sean.
Hey.
Except by every employer I've applied to these past 3 to 4 months. Oh, man. Bummer. Cool. Well, I don't see anything else we really need to do other than get to the rest of the top 6 episodes. Sean, kick us off.
Sure. So John Hay suggested Seize the Decade. Of course, Carpe Diem is Latin for seize the day, and combines that game along with our look back at the decade. So good job, John.
Nick Hayes came with Dukes on Decade. Dukes talking about the decade.
Well, and also kind of our Dukes on Deck is what we post in the Guild.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So that works out great.
I'm feeling a little loopy right now, Sean. I don't know. I'm just not paying very much attention to anything.
Have you had anything to drink, Alex?
No, not yet.
Before your workout? Okay.
Nope. About to go hit the gym. Not drunk.
All right. Yeah, I already hit the gym today. I did. I did squats. I did my squats, and anyway, Steve O'Rourke, the Name Father, suggested Dex Romana, kind of a play on the term Pax Romana. Dex being Latin for 10 and the decade, and Romana referring to Carpe Diem. So good job, Steve O'Rourke, the Name Father.
Paul G is next, and Paul G, I am very sorry because you are about to be very disappointed. Paul G, if you go on the Guild, created... So his episode title suggestion was All My X's Belong in the Duchy, referencing the Roman numeral X and X being the decade, 10 years. So here's the thing. He did a whole song parody to All My X's Live in Texas. I have not heard... I know of this song. I know this song exists. I've heard of this song. I have not heard this song. So I don't know how to sing this song. I know this was meant for me to sing, and I don't know how to sing this song. So Sean's going to have to do it for me. Go ahead, Sean. Take it away.
I don't know about that, Alex.
All right.
Country's not my thing.
That's fair. Hop on the Guild if you want to read this. He did an incredible job working in his picks from 2010, 11, 12, and 13 into his parody. Yeah. It's fantastic. He did a great job. Really great job. And I'm sorry, Paul, I have let you down.
Boy. All right. And then finally, Michael Farnbrook suggested Ducal Decade Double Down on DM.
I mean, double down on our opinions, I guess. You stayed where you were, I stayed where I was, but...
Yeah, sure did.
Yep. Yeah, not a bad one.
All right, well, that's going to do it for the final episode of 2019, episode 216. Thanks again to Striker J for helping us name this barely Feld-mas episode. So we'll see everyone for a brand new 2020, Alex. Until next time, this is Sean.
And also Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on December 27th, 2019. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all the latest in the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers, LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders' fine games at ArcaneWonders.com and learn all you want to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Until then, Happy New Year and game on.